Welcome to the Talkin Texas Rangers podcast. I'm your host, Larry Lace. Today we're diving into the latest news from around Globe Life Field. But first, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Game Time, for sponsoring this episode. Check them out today. You can use the link in the description to support the show and buy your next Texas Rangers tickets. And of course, starting off, we have our Week 15 report. I'm sure all Texas Ranger fans are tired of watching the Rangers lose by one now. I mean, this has probably got to be one stat fans didn't see coming this year. As of the end of the Rangers series versus the Mariners, the Rangers lost 23 games by one run. If you at least win 3 or 4 of those games, the Rangers would more than likely be second in the division right now, or at least close to it. There's plenty of blame to go around, from the relief pitching to Chris Woodward not managing the team correctly. But with that, we dive into that. Today we dive into who's hot. First up, Nathaniel Lowe. I'd like to thank Mr. Lowe for at least trying to put in the effort and provide some offense at the plate. In the last 7 games, Lowe has 9 hits, 2 home runs, and 4 RBIs. One of those home runs brought the Rangers within 1 run of beating the Mariners. Next, Josh Smith. Now I'm sure you're wondering why Josh Smith is on here when he only had 2 RBIs with that bat. I can see why the Rangers called him up from AAA earlier this season. His effort to make plays from third base while playing left field is what probably caught Woodward's attention. Next up, Martin Perez. I wish we had 5 of him some weeks this season. Martin Perez showed why he made the All-Star game this past week in 2 games. His stats for the past week were 7 hits, 2 earned runs, and 15 Ks. I hope Chris Young starts working on his extension for next season. We need him back in a Rangers uniform as a starter next season. And now, unfortunately, we got to address who's not hot. Starting off with Martin. I don't know where his head was at when he got inserted against the Oakland A's game. He gave up back-to-back home runs that put the A's in a position in the bottom of the ninth to win the game. I know it was just 1 game, but when you help almost blow a 10-run lead, you will be in the who's not hot list. Next up, Owen White. Owen White was moved to the 7-day injured list after he started having forearm fatigue. Now White has pitched double what he did last season, so his injury could be strictly because his arm wasn't ready for double workload this quickly. Hopefully he can come back and finish the season strong. And right now, the Rangers are finishing up a series against the Baltimore Orioles tonight. The first domino of the 2022 trade deadline for the Rangers has fallen, and it's not the one any of us expected. The Rangers have shipped reliever Matt Bush up north to Milwaukee in exchange for infielder Mark Mathias and prized Brewers pitching prospect Antoine Kelly Jr. Bush is a remarkable story. Antoine has overcome much personal adversity, become an effective reliever for the Rangers, who posted a .295 ERA and 45 strikeouts in 36 innings for Texas in 2022. A non-roster invitee to spring this year, he now heads to the Brewer crew as a weapon for their bullpen. On the Rangers' end of things, they scored big in this trade, acquiring another talented pitching prospect and left-handed pitcher Antoine Kelly Jr. Kelly, 22, was a 2019 second-round selection by the Brewers, ranked at number 16 in Milwaukee's farm system, according to MLB Pipeline. Kelly comes equipped with a plus fastball, above-average slider, and an emerging changeup. Though he has reliever risk, he also has immense upside as a starter, so he's volatile, but ultimately talented. As for Mathias, the infielder, he's barely high-level depth, but could find himself carving out a role on the Rangers roster soon. The real prize of this deal for Chris Young and John Daniels, though, is clearly Kelly. It's hard not to view this trade as anything but a win for the Texas Rangers, who, despite lacking in big league pitching options, don't really need Bush for the long haul. It's better to continue stockpiling arms in the minor leagues, where the organization has assembled an impressive collection of talents that could be used in a trade to acquire big league players later. Kelly isn't on the 40-man, so the question of whether to protect him this winter will emerge for the Rangers. But there's no reason why they wouldn't for someone with potential. The Texas Rangers struck gold on their only move during the trade deadline. and we'll have to see what comes of it. Let us know in the comments section below, what did you think of the Texas Rangers organization's trade deadline moves? And with last, we move on to our next topic. After pulling off a somewhat surprising trade on Monday evening that sent relief pitcher Matt Bush to the Brewers for highly talented prospect Antoine Kelly and AAA utility Mark Mathias, the Texas Rangers stood pat on Tuesday. Action at the trade deadline can be exciting for an organization and a fan base. No action can also indicate that the club likes where they are currently, as well as the path they are on. Obviously, with a record that is well below 500 and virtually no chance at the playoffs this year, we were not going to be buyers for this season. If there would have been a deal or two that made sense for 23 and beyond, there is no doubt that Young and Daniels would have pulled the trigger. The one player that most people felt like would be moved was Matt Moore. He has pitched great this year and has performed well above his career numbers. Over 48.2 innings this season, the left-handed reliever has posted 52 Ks, has a 1.66 ERA, 2.79 FIP. He's due to hit free agency at the end of the season, and it was assumed that Moore would be traded to garner a return of additional prospects to add to the Rangers' strong farm system. That didn't happen. Not that it will be a guarantee, but Texas will be looking to sign Moore to an extension in the offseason to help solidify the bullpen for next year's playoff push. It should be remembered that Moore was a non-roster invitee to training camp that didn't even make the opening day roster. He was called up shortly after the season started and has battled for the Rangers all season. And hopefully he will be part of a fun season in 23. The only other player that on paper should have been traded was Martin Perez. Perez also having a career year. In 20 starts to the season, Perez has pitched 125 innings, posting 107 Ks, allowing only 35 walks, with a 2.52 ERA and a 2.8 WAR. The first-time All-Star would have fetched a good amount of talent, but as with Moore, the Rangers want him to be part of the team next season and beyond. Not only that, but Perez wants to be in Arlington and has made it clear of his wishes to stay in the organization. The fact could help the Texas Rangers sign Perez in the offseason and potentially do so at a slight discount. Even though it was quiet on the outside, the Rangers front office was working hard over the last few days, exploring every possible scenario. At the end of the day, they felt like staying the course was the proper decision. They are committed to adding starting pitching in the offseason, and since Chris Young showed up in Arlington, things are headed in a great direction. The offseason should definitely be an exciting one. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Should Perez or Matt Moore have been traded? Of course, there is one question. Could the Texas Rangers actually have buyer's remorse? It doesn't seem possible given that the team's recent trajectory would have made them sellers more than buyers in 2022. But after missing out on trading for a controllable starter at the deadline this year, and with an injury to rotation stalwart John Gray, as well as uncertainty behind ace Martin Perez, all eyes will be on the front office to address their pitching staff sooner rather than later. Since they didn't strike while the iron was hot on August 2nd, Rangers GM Chris Young made it a point to say that upgrading the pitching would be the team's clear top priority in the coming winter. This after spending $500+ million to bring in high-end talent last winter. There were clearly options at the trade deadline if the Rangers wanted to acquire a controllable starter. Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle, Frankie Montes were among the prime candidates there. The market ended up being expensive for those assets, though, as you'd expect, and Texas elected to retain their prospect depth. But looking ahead to the offseason, the starter market looks bleak. The best pitcher on the market, Jacob deGrom, is a massive injury risk, but is nonetheless elite, despite already being in his mid-30s. Behind him, the injured Chris Sale, the aging David Price, Dodger legend Clayton Kershaw, who almost became a Ranger in 2022. You got Charlie Morton, Noah Syndergaard, Carlos Rodon, Nathan Eovaldi, and old friend Kyle Gibson. While there may be a lot of names, none besides deGrom at this stage of the game or none of them, besides DeGrom, offer true ace potential at this stage of the game. There's a lot of injury-prone names there, and no other name besides DeGrom screams must-have. This is the position Chris Young and John Daniels have put themselves in. Yes, there are more options in free agency, but wouldn't you rather have Castillo, Montez, or Mall over most of the names above? All three offer more upside too in general. Young and Daniels have no choice. They've made it clear that pitching is a priority, and it better be with contention next year also on their minds, because the Rangers pitching staff, as currently constructed, is just plain bad. Having a fantastic group of pitching prospects on the way certainly helps, but they can't all be saviors. The front office has got to pony up even more money and get the best upgrades they possibly can, because they opted to pass on the talent available at this year's deadline. And finally, in a surprise turn, like we discussed a little bit before, Perez and more never got traded. As such, they remain on the Texas Rangers roster. The only move the Rangers made was trading Matt Bush. I thought there was a good chance Perez would be dealt, though, as a rental starting pitcher, who has had a very good first half of the season, but who most teams would probably not feel comfortable with using more than once in a 7-game playoff series, given his lack of a track record of performing at this level. I thought the potential return in a trade would not be that great. The Rangers apparently believed that whatever was offered for Perez was less valuable than having him in Texas. The final 2 months of the season to provide innings and whatever progress it provides in an effort to extend Perez beyond this year. Moore, meanwhile, I expected to be dealt because, well, everyone needs relievers. And Moore is a free agent after the season. Moore has put up a 1.66 ERA and 48 relief innings with a 2.79 FIP. And while he's had control issues crop up at times, one would think he would still be of interest to playoff contenders. Again, whatever was offered was apparently not enough. But I am surprised that there wasn't even a third-tier prospect offered that would entice the Rangers to pull the trigger on a deal. Let us know your comments in the comment section below. What did you think about the trade deadline moves? And as always, if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/TTRangers. Your support helps the channel grow, upgrade our equipment, create even better content, create new shows, bring in new hosts, be able to pay them. And as always, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.